Caressa, if you can hear me, I'm trying to promote you to a panelist so that you can participate in the public comment section of today's meeting. There we go.
Hi, I think I got it. I don't have a video on this computer though.
That's okay. We're happy to have you here. Have you spoken before a committee before the full legislature?
I have not. This is my first.
Just so you're aware, you have 3 minutes. And you know, you can't swear or yell at us. Well, you can yell at us, I guess. You can't talk about a particular individual employee because they can't defend themselves. I'm trying to think what the other rules are. You want to read them?
I can. All right. So the rules are, I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. And I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers, or in this case, the Zoom meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brittany. And Caressa, go ahead.
Sorry, I have no idea what I'm doing. So if it's okay for me not to talk right now.
Oh, no, you're welcome to speak to us.
I don't know what to speak about. I was actually just trying to listen, see what's going on, and how to navigate this.
Oh, okay. All right. Anytime you want to make a public comment, you're perfectly welcome, but you certainly don't have to. So we'll carry on. Thanks. Next item of business is whether there's any changes to the agenda. I don't believe there are. We have minutes from September 15th, 2022. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes? Travis moves, Mike seconds. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor? We can use a hand raise because we're all here. Right? All in favor? Thank you. Chair's report is the next item. And as I'm sure you recall, we had a visitor with us 6 months ago who came in and talked about her personal experience with her son dying of a drug overdose. And it was, I thought, very powerful. And we made a commitment to review this issue and to set ourselves a deadline to see what we'd done at that point. And that's today. So I'd like to have a short conversation on where we've been. We've certainly heard a lot of people talk to us on this particular issue. We've learned a lot about the nature of the data that we are able to collect on drug overdoses and how difficult it is to get accurate numbers. I note that in our public safety report for this month, we're showing 57 911 calls for overdose poisoning, although that's, you know, the call that's received, it's not necessarily what people find when they get there. But 57 compared to an average of 32 seems to indicate something pretty significant is still going on in our community. And while it's hard to track, I think that we are doing some good things in terms of getting Narcan out into the community and the formation of an opioid task force. You know, I welcome other comment from other members of the committee. Travis.
Is that number that's based on 911 calls?
Right, right.
So we could be at 200 overdoses. We wouldn't know just what's based on the calls.
Yeah, I think what we can glean from that is trend, that some of those calls say are their baby, you know, took some aspirin, found an aspirin bottle, and it has nothing to do with the opioid epidemic. Or it could be somebody drank, you know, a household cleaner inadvertently. It was a mistake. So those calls are mixed in too. So they don't tell us exactly what happened, but just the sheer volume shows some of those are opioid calls.
Yeah, I know in one of the programs that I supervised, the numbers are more than double what they were this time last year for just the participants in that particular program.
Yeah, I think that we are tracking more information. And if anybody is here from the health department, I'm not sure I see anybody, but you know, they certainly try to track this and pass information. Jennifer, maybe you have some further comment on that I think you had commented on the numbers before, but it does seem that we are seeing trends going up, which is really unfortunate.
I could just speak briefly. Since that meeting, I've sent monthly an overdose report to the legislature. Hopefully you have a chance to review that. Again, that is just calls that the sheriff's office goes to. So by no means is it a full picture of how, you know, law enforcement is involved. But as you did imply, Rich, some of the overdose calls may not be opiate related. In last month's report, I did notice a trend of Narcan either not being effective or multiple doses of Narcan having to be administered to bring the person back to consciousness. At the same time, other service providers that provide services to the same population started reaching out to me, seeing the same trend and hearing from their program participants that it was correlated or caused by trank dope being in the area, hence the public safety alert that was issued by the sheriff's department last month regarding that. But again, the drugs present are oftentimes fully ingested or an arrest isn't made, so we're not testing those narcotics. So I can't speak to if xylazine was specifically in those drugs, but those are the trends that are getting reported to us by people in the community.
Thank you for that. It doesn't seem like things are getting better right now. That I think we're seeing the trend going in the wrong direction. And we probably should be thinking about more ways we could react to this. I think the opioid task force is a good and significant step, but it probably is not enough. You know, I think we can look to that group to start making recommendations to us, but we probably need to be ready to act on them pretty quickly. And Dan, thank you for the doc here, this news story you sent to me. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that a little bit from Kentucky.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I actually learned something recently also that there's at the bowling alley in Cortland, they have a vending machine that has Narcan in it. But the article that I saw that I forwarded to Mr. John was a police department in Kentucky who had so many overdoses that they decided to put a vending machine in front of their building with public access, that the only thing in it was Narcan. And I forget how many doses it had in it, but it was empty in 9 hours.
36, I think. Yeah.
And, so communities are trying to come up with some creative ways to safely distribute it and make access easier for folks, you know, after business hours when they can't get it from a pharmacy or another provider.
Just starting October 7th, I think we sent this out to the legislature as well. We started distributing bags out to people who are getting released from the jail, and within that bag, Narcan is provided, as well as fentanyl testing strips, as well as other items that were identified between medical staff and REACH, which would help people transition from the jail back into the community. So, you know, we're trying to get inventive as well. And I would agree, obviously, we haven't gotten through the month of October, so I haven't sent you the overdose report for October yet, but I am aware of at least 2 overdose related deaths that have occurred this month in the county.
And I apologize, it was 36 hours the machine was empty. I don't know how many were actually in it. But that's something we could think about. Maybe we put up our own vending machine or think about different distribution channels. Lisa?
Thanks, Rich. I also wanted to mention at the NISAC conference last month or the month before, I went to a panel where the Erie County Opioid Task Force was presenting, and they've been around for, I want to say, almost 10 years, and they've really have broad participation, multi-agency participation, multi-sector, and have come up with some pretty sophisticated public health messaging. And I picked up everything that I could find. I brought it back. I shared it with Dominic, who I believe was planning or maybe has already shared it with a team at the health department to think about ways that we might be able to do something similar from a public health perspective to help get the word out, perhaps offer testing strips, a broad variety of techniques to reach people.
And I should know this, but if you could give a status update on the opioid task force, how are we doing with setting that up? Do you know?
So Frank shared a memo at last month's Health and Human Services Committee, and I believe I was just trying to look through my notes on where that ended up. I believe that Shauna, as chair of the legislature, was working to appoint members to it. So I think it's in the process of being formed.
It is being formed. We actually put out a doodle poll yesterday for people to pick times to come to the first meeting. I think the last date was the 28th of October. So sometime over the next week or two, we'll be meeting.
Are you involved? Are you on the?
Yeah, I'm the chair.
Oh, outstanding. Thank you, Travis, for doing that. Okay, anything further we want to raise on this issue? Certainly. Veronica.
Just want to support the idea of thinking of this as a public health issue. I'm glad we're talking about it here, and it seems like response it's a public health crisis and needs to include the health department. So yeah, I'm curious what messaging you brought back. Just because they have more infrastructure already in getting out messages about epidemics and things.
I certainly agree with that. It is a public health issue, but it's our sheriff's department that responds on these 911 calls often. And so it seems to cross over and be both public safety, public health.
Yeah.
In my view.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but
yeah.
Our sheriff's department is here already. So thank you. We've got that.
And I think pretty clearly, our county does not respond to this as a criminal matter. It is a public safety matter rather than, So I think we're saying the same thing. So, okay. Anything further? Moving on, I see we have Arel with us and wanted to spend a little bit of time updating us or reminding us on the work done before the pandemic. And I thought I saw, Mark Kakufka is here from Labella. Welcome. Then Arel, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, let me share my screen here. All right, hopefully everyone can see the screen. Are you all able to see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So this is a presentation that we brought before the Public Safety Committee about 2.5 years ago. So it was Labella, myself presented, and it was basically the culmination of a few studies that we had done regarding the public safety building. We did a building condition assessment. We looked at space needs for the Sheriff's Administration, as well as critical space needs on the jail side for program space. And so we presented several options. And so I'll go through the slides. A little bit is background of what we had done to that point in time. So we had retained Labella to do a building condition report. Building being, was built in 1986, being 36 years old. There were a lot of issues with the building. And so we wanted to really have a full assessment of the condition of the building so that we could then get a cost for doing a 25-year renovation of the building. We looked at as well as the programmatic renovations and addition concepts, both for the sheriff administration side, but also for the jail programs and housing. And so this is a kind of a breakdown of what that building condition assessment contained. It was looking at not just the jail and the public safety portion, the sheriff's department, also looking at the sanitary sewer, which basically the underground condition of piping under the building, because over time we've had problems there. Also looking at what it would take to make it a net zero building, so reduce carbon emissions there, and as also to do what we call a regulated building materials inspection to really identify any hazardous materials such as asbestos, lead, PCBs that might be in the building, so that when we do move forward with renovations, we would be aware what we might encounter. This is just a view of the public safety building. I think most of you have walked through the building or have seen it. And as I said, it was built in 1986. It is cramped for space, mostly on the sheriff's administration side, but also on the jail side, it's very limiting in space for programs. On the medical side, program space, also holding cells. And so just so you know, the improvements that we're in the middle of starting now, we've done all the design, we've already awarded contracts, and contractors are providing information submittals to Labella. Those improvements, which are really the near-term, short-term improvements, are only addressing the critical building deficiencies. They're not addressing really any space needs, except for we are converting the existing holding cell into 3 smaller holding cells. That's really about it as far as space improvements. And these are just photographs to give an idea of the types of deficiencies that we found as we did our building condition assessment. Here are others, and many of these will be addressed as part of the improvements that we're doing currently. These have to do with mechanical systems. So we're going to be doing work in the kitchens. We're going to be replacing the generator. We're also going to be installing a new grease trap and making some electrical improvements in the mechanical spaces. The sanitary report that I mentioned looked at the time 34-year-old system. We've had over the last probably 10 years several blockages in the A and B wings. A lot of it is because inmates stuff things down the toilets. And so we looked at the condition of the sewer pipes below grade, and also these blockages in the kitchen with the grease traps. So we are addressing item 3. We are doing some replacement of underground sewer lines, mostly in the kitchen and a few other areas, but it's limited. Our underground report with cameras showed that really the worst of it was closer to the kitchen than really the rest of the facility. And this report also included the cost to do repairs and replacements for anything that we encountered and found in the sanitary report. Also, as I mentioned, we did a net zero study. Labella was able to get a grant through NYSERDA, FlexTech, to do that analysis. And so we did a thorough analysis and came up with several options. The one option that we really selected was 3D, which was a combination of solar, geothermal, and several energy conservation measures. And so the estimates that you'll see moving forward now incorporated that 3D option. So this gives an idea, if we were to go net zero there, how we could accomplish that. And we would have off to the upper right, we would have a geothermal well field. that this is airport property. And then just on the lower right would be a solar array. Now the solar would not have to be proximate to the building because we would do net metering. So it would not have to be here. It's a large array. The geothermal would have to be fairly close to the public safety building, whether it's here or somewhere else, but it would have to be fairly close. And then we looked at the 25-year renovation. So based on the building condition assessment that Labella had done, we looked at all of the deficiencies in the building and had them prepare an estimate for what that would cost. And so this is their opinion of probable cost. We looked at the structural, environmental, anything architectural finishes in the building, the plumbing, fire protection systems, HVAC, and then electrical. And so the bottom number is the 2019 cost, which was $11 million. And we have, as you can see on the lower portion there, a lot of contingencies because that was based on conceptual design. As you get closer, design to detail design, your estimates are more refined. But so that's why those numbers are, the contingents are higher than they would be as we get into detailed design. And then since we would also be including the net zero option for that 3D solar and geothermal, that added probably another 1.5 million. And then some of the other improvements for sanitary sewer and then the hazardous material improvements were included as part of the previous slide. Then to accomplish the work, we would have to either do it in two ways, either do board out sections of the correction side or board out everyone. And so we would have to include either of the costs, either 2.3 or the basically $5 million cost. We felt it was better to do the board out everyone. So that would be another 5 million on top of the previous numbers, which takes you up to about $17.5 million. And then we looked at really the renovation of the building to include space, addressing space needs. And so this was one option. The airport is in, I think, the design stages of their SRE, emergency services facility. And so that was one option where we could add to that building, which would have it close to the existing jail. And so we would build a 16,000 square foot addition to that SRE building. And then they would vacate the existing public safety building, and the space vacated then could be used for program, medical, and other critical needs that the correction side has. But this option did not look at those space improvements to the existing jail. It only looked at the cost of the addition and the improvements for the building deficiencies. So this is the probable cost for doing the airport emergency building addition, as well as the improvements to the existing building. So it would be the range in the bottom there, 5.6 to 6.6 million, plus you would add in the 17.5 million for the improvements to the existing building.
Arel, just to be clear, that would be to build essentially the road patrol, the civil and road patrol.
Yes, Sheriff's Administration, Civil Road Patrol, correct. Everything that's on the non.
Looking at the jail renovation cost in that number.
Well, the number, the 5.6 to 6.6 million would be that, what we just mentioned. And then the bottom, the number just below that, the 7.5 is improvements to the existing building, but they're only really addressing the deficiencies. It's not addressing any space needs on the correction side.
Thank you.
And then this was another option where rather than have it, the building separate from the existing public safety building, that we would basically add the Sheriff's Administration, Civil and Road Patrol to the existing public safety building. And so this is really a variation of the initial option. This would be a little less money because there'd be less site development. Although if we were to add on to the airports building, I think there's opportunities there for some federal funding that may help offset some of those site costs. And this is a cost of that option, which is, this was like 8.3 to nearly 10 million, plus you would then add the improvements to the existing correction side, the jail. Option 3 is also a variation where it would be not attached to any existing building or proposed airport building, but it'd be on its own. Now, back when this was done, this was prior to the fuel farm and also definite plans for the airport's SRE building. So that location would not work now, but it could be standalone anywhere else. So basically it's shown here, but it could be standalone, anywhere else. And initially this started when there was an opportunity of a property, 2 properties south of this building that was available for sale. When that fell through, then we said, well, what would it cost if we were to build a separate standalone building for Sheriff's Administration, Civil and Road Patrol, because really the need was we needed to vacate that space at the Public Safety Building in order to accommodate any space needs for the correction side. And if you've been through there, it is just cramped for space. There's really no space to do anything like that without moving Sheriff's Administration out. The cost for this one, it's about $8 million to $9 million. So they're all fairly close. And then the option was, what if we just did a brand new jail and public safety facility, anywhere else? And so that's the basically $40 to $45 million. But it does not include land or any of the offsite utility costs, which Mark and I have talked about that. You can figure about $5 million added to that, based on if you're really going in an area that's not very well developed as far as infrastructure. So that could put it up to a $45 to $50 million project in total. And then the last 2 remaining options are the ones that really look at the space needs for both sides, both the administration, Civil and Road Patrol, but also addressing the critical program space needs on the correction side. So this is the hybrid option, which it takes the existing public safety building, does an addition on the top side there for Sheriff's Administration, Civil and Road Patrol. And then the space that is vacated, which is basically this portion here, if you can see my mouse, is for those programs. We've got medical, we've got the space here for a lot of the programs, so offices for those that are providing the instruction. Then hold on, classrooms would be here. Or no, would be here. These would be still as is. These are the dorm space at the public safety building, and these are the minimum and max. But basically, all of this space would be used by the correction site. So this would have to be hardened space as far as detention grade fixtures, walls, ceilings, all of that, which currently it is not. It's not detention grade construction. And then the last, okay, I'm sorry, this is the cost for that option. Oops. So that is a 23 basically to $27 million. And then we would include $5 million on top of that for board outs. And this also would include doing, the net zero, geothermal, solar, and a few other improvements on the energy side there. We would address all the building condition deficiencies in the building, do some selective demolition, and do the renovations to make the existing space that it would be vacated by Sheriff's Administration to make a detention grade. And then the last option is where we're actually looking at the option of adding pods to make it a true direct supervision type jail. So this would have the same addition that I mentioned previously for the Sheriff's Administration, Civil and Road Patrol, program space, medical. The dorms would now become classrooms, so space for plenty of space for classrooms. And then we would demolish basically, if you remember in the previous slide, I can show you this. The blue is the existing cells, and these are the dorms. These are the cell blocks. So we would demolish basically the max wing, which is the bottom leg, and a portion of this wing. We would use this. This would remain, but the rest would be demolished. And then we would add 3 pods for classification. There's really no way to do it with one single pod. It's not a matter of the number of, I mean, you can go 60, but there's no way with 60 you can get the classification. So this, you would end up with 3 pods, I think 32, 32, and 18, I think, here. The tight, or the site is tight. So this is, I mean, the property line is right along the bottom of the slide here. So this is as far as we can go. There's not much room over on the right side here. So really we're limited, and it works out well that this is where the pods would go, because this is where the current blocks are. I would have a sally port. So here, the only portion that we would be doing selective demolition would be this bottom portion, and then this would be the addition. So this option, this one, as well as the hybrid, are really the only 2 that address all of the space needs, in particular the program space needs on the correction side. Neither of the first 3 address that. The focus there was really to get the Sheriff's Administration, Civil and Road Patrol out of the building, and then the remaining space would be used as is, but would not include any improvements to that space to address those programs space deficiencies that the correction side has. And this is the cost for that last option with the pod addition, so which is 35 to basically 40 million, plus the board out cost of $5 million. And then this is basically a summary slide that shows all of the options. And here we've added in that 17.5 million for those earlier options. So then on the far right, you can see basically the number for the total improvement costs for those options. But I said really the ones that you would really look at if you're looking at addressing all of the needs at the public safety building, not only building deficiencies, but also space needs for program on the jail side, kitchen space, medical space. It's really the last 4 options that you would focus on, which range, at least at that time, from basically 32 million to 45 million. But as I said before, for option 4, for a brand new building anywhere else, you'd have to add in all of the land as well as offsite utility costs, which we figured 5 million. So that's 50 million on the high end, 32 million for the hybrid, and then a 45 million for option that shows pods and a true direct supervision model. And that's it.
Thank you, Aurel. Well, I'll open it up. Anybody have any questions or comments? As everybody's stunned.
Nice if it got cheaper rather than more.
What's that?
I just found it interesting that it got much more, it's going to be much more expensive than we were just a short time ago. So.
Are those numbers today's numbers, Arel?
No, no. At this point, I did not want to have Labella do any more as far as costs and fees to update those numbers. As I said, those at the time, 2019, we had good contingencies, design contingencies, construction contingencies, but with inflation as it's been, I think Labella had indicated from 2019 to 2020, the inflation on the construction side was, I think, up 19%. And so that blows away those numbers, those contingencies that we had there. So no, they're not updated. We can do that. I did not want to do that yet. So those are based on 2019 numbers.
So we can use them for relative cost.
Correct.
One
Correct.
design to another.
Correct.
You said something about being constrained in terms of land to the east. Is that because you get into the airport land?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I can bring it up again.
Is there an FAA issue there, or does the airport have to have that land there because it's vacant, right?
It's a better question for Roxanne or Josh. I don't. It would not be a height issue because we're far enough from the runway. Even if we were to go to the other side of the fence. So let me bring up the initial option that showed us. Sorry about that. So I mean, they're building. I mean, the plan is to build their building here. So yeah, there are no issues as far as construction. We're far enough removed from the runway that wouldn't be an issue. But I do not know how far we could encroach into the airport property. This is you can see this, there's a little service road right along here.
Right.
And our fence is right to the left of that.
Yeah, I'm asking because I'm wondering, would it be possible to construct the pods in effectively that space just east of where the current, where you're up above where your mouse is?
Oh, right up here?
There, yeah.
Yeah,
And-
Mark.
And
Mark,
keep the L, so you'd have it for programming space.
Oh. Yeah, Mark, I'm not sure if can hear me or not. I can't remember if early on, I'm talking years ago, we may have looked at that.
I just thought it was, my understanding was from the airport runway, the buffer that they needed and whatnot, that it would be complicated to take anything, at the time, right at the time, it was complicated to take anything east of that fence line that is currently the north and south fence line that is at the back of the public safety building property is I thought. So whether you could encroach upon that, a little bit. But I think that, from a construction and operation standpoint, if you put the 3 pods in, now does it start to impact your existing garage?
Right.
That's there, and so that's a critical part of the sheriff's operation. What do you, if you go to direct supervision, which the new pods would allow, you're going to abandon, I guess, the old linear. So, what do you do with that? Because it's kind of designed for one thing. You could do some gutting of it, and try to turn it into something else.
And the other constraints, also some of the infrastructure that exists, are that the generator is right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse or pointer. Really at the top of the garages is here. That's being replaced. And so there are a lot of electrical lines that run underground to the building. And also there's a communications tower here. The county is leasing, or several cell providers are leasing space on the tower. And these are their communication shelters. And so there's a lot of cabling underground here. And so building here wouldn't be impossible. Would be expensive to relocate all that because we have long-term agreements with the cell providers, like T-Mobile, Verizon. I think
Okay.
there's three.
I was asking because if you could maintain the L, you could perhaps reprogram it for classrooms, medical, and some of the other, wish list items we were talking about in August, and then take some of the current space in the secure side and turn it over to road patrol and repurpose it as they would need.
Right.
And I guess I have a follow-up question or another question, which is, Sheriff, do we have any real comparisons what the labor cost differential is between a pod and the linear system you're running now? Because that would be the rationale.
No, we haven't actually taken the step of trying to come up with an actual figure. That would take a lot of coordination probably with the commission to figure out, once we have a design in place or direction we're going, what the manpower would look like for something like that. So at this point, it'd really be too hard to say, in my opinion, but it's certainly something that can be explored.
Mike, did you have something?
So I know that the one had the pod situation, the last one, which
Right.
and I know that you're talking 3 pods because of classification, but what if we were to build 1 pod for the bulk of the people we have coming in, which I assume would be men? That would take care of 90% of our problem, not problem, but 90% of the people we need to house for a short time. And then we board out the youths and women. I don't even know if that would be a lot of a cost savings. I would assume it would be. Building 1 pod has got to be cheaper than buying 3. Just because that $40 million number is, I don't think that's really a starter for us. I could be wrong. Maybe people go, yeah, that's a great place to start, but I don't think it is. I don't know. That's really probably more of a question for the sheriff than for Arel, but.
I would be nervous. I don't know if we're going to get what we need out of it with just 1 pod, honestly. Yeah, we could board out more people. In fact, we could probably save a ton of money if we boarded everybody out. But I'm not sure that's the direction the county really wants to go in. And it would defeat the purpose of the programs that we're trying to offer here in county. Would 1 pod help? Absolutely. It would help. It'd make a huge difference. I think we'd just be kind of slowly chugging along with minor fixes and never really addressing our long-term problems.
I agree with you, Sheriff, that even if we could save money boarding people out, that would defeat what we've really engaged to do here in Tompkins County in terms of providing a lot of programming around the jail to try to make sure people get help, they don't come back. And I think we've been somewhat successful with that. I'd hate to just go in another direction. But those numbers are pretty scary.
Yeah, they are scary, Rich. And you're right. You're just confirming what I said, but we currently board out a lot of females, and that doesn't seem right to me either. That the mere fact that you come into the jail and you're a female, that you get sent somewhere else. I don't think that's the direction we want to continue either, if we can avoid it.
Yeah. And again, thank you for arranging the visit to Shenango County. I was struck by not only the efficiency, and I'm pretty confident there would be cost saving if we built pods in terms of ongoing supervision cost, but also the quality that we would be putting people in a much better environment. It was just so much brighter and open than the current linear, cells that getting pods would seem to fit what we've really been trying to accomplish with our jail overall.
And I think, Rich, the conversation we just had about
keeping some of that L-shaped linear style and, you know, tacking on a pod at the end or somewhere else. I'm not convinced we'd want to do that. I mean, that dormitory space we have, and, you know, I know you've all seen it. That's huge. I mean, that could easily be program space and probably accomplish everything we need. That I would think we'd be better off avoiding that linear style for really much of anything if we could swap it out with pods, definitely.
I'm curious, the numbers added up to 82 on the 3-pod proposal. And I assume that's to keep our current numbers so that the Commission on Correction would probably say, okay. Was that part of the thinking? I can't even remember at this point.
It was, and if you remember from our jail tour in the other county there, each pod can be separated for classification purposes, so you have multiple classifications in each pod. And I believe the drawing had 2 larger pods and 1 very small pod.
Yeah.
I can't remember the reasoning for that. Maybe it was just space, or maybe that was designed for females.
Yeah, it was females.
Okay. And that would be another reason why you would need more than 1 pod if you want to keep our female population local.
Yes.
I think that was a lot of the driving force, is that no one is going to, on board outs, no one's going to treat your population the way you want to treat them, and make the systemic changes that Tompkins County is looking to do. And that's why a lot of counties really look to take in their own. Commission of Correction isn't, as I would say, as arrogant as they used to be. But I think systemically now counties are taking a hard look at, we're investing in them. They're our local inmates. They're in our community. You know, what kind of impact we can make. And if they're now boarded out 1 or 2 counties away, you have lost that opportunity, you know, completely. So.
Well, I look to the committee. What do you think next steps? Is this a non-starter? Are the prices too high? Do we want to pass this on to F&I with some sort of recommendation?
Yeah.
I'd listen to you first. I will render my opinion, but I'm happy to give other people a chance to speak first.
Say it's like a leaky boat. I mean, you got to fix it. You're going to be in for 20 million at least, according to, even if we just renovated the jail as it was, right, and kept everything the same. We just made it nicer. It seemed like Arel was talking in the neighborhood. What was the least? 11 million?
Right. Well, yeah. Well, 17 and a half plus, you know, associated board out costs and such. I mean, and those are 2019 numbers, as I indicated.
We're looking at 20 million just to renovate, 20 million. Or you're looking at maybe 40 million. I mean, I'm looking at the pod situation. I'm not even, so what is it? That was number 6. Because 6 and 5 are kind of the same, except one has pods and doesn't, and the prices are pretty close. When I say pretty close, I'm like within 5 million.
Right.
That's where we're at, right? But it would just seem to me, if you're in for 20 million, do it the way that it should be done for 40 million. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why are we going to renovate a jail to go back 30 years when we could spend more and leap forward, as opposed to, because what we have now, is it working for us? I don't. Would we have done it this way if 30 years ago, if we knew today what we knew then? I don't think we would. We would have built something. We probably would have built the pod system 30 years ago if that was, you know, where we were. And it just seems like that's going to cost 40 million, and that's, or we go with a more board out model, like. And I don't think that's, I think those are the choices. Either you board everybody out or you build a new jail. Not a new jail, but a pod jail. I don't know if there really is a middle ground on that.
Not to add too many alternatives, but there's also the possibility of a regional. We could do something in Cortland. They're still, I believe, trying to figure out how they proceed. But they had a pretty ambitious plan to build a brand new jail out in the outskirts of the city, which I think they put on the shelf when they saw the cost. But doing something like that would mean coming to a common understanding of how the jail would be operated, which is, maybe we could get there. I don't know. But again, I don't want to complicate it further. Veronica, Travis, do you want to think out loud?
Sure. I don't have a ton of thoughts. With that new idea, I'd love to hear more about that or our sheriff's take on whether that's even a starter. Arel, can you send these plans to us? Or like the slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were sent previously. We made it just a few corrections, not on the numbers, but titling on the last few slides. But yes, I can send those to Taylor or Katrina to make sure that all of you have them.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. I must have missed it. I still need to digest it more, for sure, but I wouldn't want to hold up, say, at least continuing the contemplation process with F&I or anyone else that needs to be involved. That's kind of a non-thought. I apologize.
Travis?
So, I do agree with Mike. If we're going to do it, we might as well do it right for the future. I guess at the end of the day, if we're going to spend this type of money to make this happen, then I hope the idea is to put people first. And the idea would be, as our members of the community go in, they're coming out with better opportunities, right? And so if that's what the idea is, then I think that it's worth really looking at doing this thing the right way and making it happen so that it creates opportunities for folks to come out better. We know we're going to have people going into jail. Unfortunately, that's a thing that's there, that exists. And if people are given opportunities to better themselves, better their situations when they come out, then I'm for it. If it's a situation where that's not the number one goal, then I wouldn't be for it. I think the money could be better spent doing other things. But if that's the idea, then I think we should do it right the next time and be done with it.
Mike?
I liked what you just said. And I think the pod thing really was a good visit. It was because I even liked the family visiting area. Like the fact that you could go in and yet it was still you couldn't really pass anybody anything, and I liked that about that. I guess my big question too is we have been successful in getting people kind of out of jail. I mean, our jail is only supposed to hold people for under a year. I mean, we get that. And what are we down to now? 45, I think, someplace in that.
We were 46 with one board out at our last legislative meeting. I don't know what it is today.
It's the same today, 47.
So, we have a sizing issue too. I mean, are we really going to build this pod for 60 people? I mean, how big are each pod going to be? I don't know the answer to that question. Not that I think there's going to be any cost side. I think a 60, well, there should be some, but not a lot. Is a 60-person pod much more expensive than a 20-person pod? I don't even know if they size them. I have no idea, but just something that just popped into my head. I'm like, that's kind of a dilemma. And how successful have our programs been? Are we seeing the same people kind of rotating through? Or
I think we've been doing pretty well on recidivism. I haven't
thought we do
had a conversation about that in a bit, but I haven't heard that there's been any significant change in that trend. We have Marie Boyer really pushing to get people into programming, and I think she's been doing a very good job of lining them up, at least connecting them. But yeah, if what we're intending to do is to have a warehouse where we can put people for a while but we're not really trying to affect change, I would hesitate to invest this kind of money. But we have been really more ambitious than that. And I think we have seen some benefit. What would be helpful in my mind, and by the way, I had been really, this has been a helpful conversation today because I've been thinking we don't want to lose the value of these immediate stopgap expenditures we've made on our jail right now or are making right now. Because it's a lot of money, but we needed to spend that money to continue to have an operating facility. But looking in the bigger scope, I think trying to push the pods around to not lose, the construction work we're doing, the stopgap stuff is probably not the right way to think about it. It would be great if we had some sense of the cost savings we're seeing from connecting people to programming and having them not come back. Several years ago, I did a presentation at NISAC and I put up a slide for a specific individual I went to high school with who at that point had been in our jail 82 times, and what did that cost? When you think about it, I mean, just the bed days to house this person over and over again, because we never got to that person early enough, I think there was a pretty significant addiction issue. We're saving money every time we have somebody not come back. And also if we have a pod, if we could figure out what the differential is in supervision cost, that's an ongoing savings that you balance against your capital cost. And Mark, I'm wondering, do you have any information from other facilities on the differential costs when they transferred to a pod system or?
Yeah, I mean, with the risk of the sheriff getting mad at me, but with the size of your facility on these really small facilities, I think my general experience is that your staff is going to be the same.
Oh.
Is that because each housing unit is going to have one officer 24/7, right, with your relief factor, and the sheriff currently has, I think, you have one one post in the dorms, then you have two posts in the linear, and I think you're just going to take those posts and put them into the 3 pods. I mean, so that's the simplistic way I'm looking at it. Now you got rovers and things like that are around there, but the counties that really have benefited, I mean, we're looking at Niagara County, a 500 bed facility of going from linear to direct supervision. Sure, in those instances, the number of posts, they're so large and so inefficient that the number of posts, you sometimes can get a reduction going to a podular system. But we've done a lot of these facilities that are 150 bed facilities and smaller, and you just don't have the sheriff is so efficient now, as efficient as he can. It's tough to say, oh, with a pod system, I'm going to become even more efficient. So that because the rest is going to stay, right? Your kitchen staff, your booking staff, your core staff, your laundry, your rovers, your intake, whether you have 3 pods or 10 pods, for all points and purposes, some of that is not going to change. Your core areas aren't going to change. So
Okay.
that's a gut reaction to what I have kind of seen around the state.
All right, well, it's useful information, if not happy. Travis?
If depending on what Cortland's need is, Cortland County, if we were to look at a regional facility, it seems like our numbers have gone down for some period of time. Depending on what Cortland's need is, if we could build a regional facility here, we can split the cost. We can share the cost, at least with Cortland, and that's not necessarily a bad idea either.
It might be. You then have the issue of having your road patrol somewhere else. So the sheriff would have a facility that he wouldn't be sitting next to. So we'd have to consider that as well. But you might find, yeah, significant cost savings, like start talk about half, you know?
If I could just add, Rich, I mean, I think we obviously save money with the building of the structure itself, but then I would question, you know, who's in charge of it? And whoever we partner with it, are they going to have the same values we have? And when we start investing in programs, are they going to be willing to put half the bill for the investment in those programs as well? I think those two things are what would concern me. I'm not necessarily against the idea. Quite honestly, I don't know much about it. But those are the concerns I would have. I'm sure Cortland County and other surrounding counties aren't doing anywhere near what we're doing here in Tompkins County. And I would hate to see that suffer as a result of that.
I think your concerns are reasonable. Lisa, I was wondering if you had thoughts you wanted to share. Don't want to put you on the spot, but.
Thanks, Rich. I was thinking along the same thought process in terms of any cost savings by going to pod, which Mark just depressingly disabused us of, and as well as the regional approach. So I'm thinking along those same lines. Those are the two areas I was curious about.
Okay. Well, at this point, maybe we should, as Veronica said, digest the information we received. Ralph.
Yeah, well, I did want to, when you were talking about operational costs, one thing for maintaining the existing jail, it's much more expensive than a direct supervision podular type jail, because right now to do any repairs, we have to go into the correction side. There are 48 heat pumps that are above secure ceilings, so we have to get up into the ceiling to service them. We cannot leave the building or the ceilings exposed, so we have to do what we can, either remove the heat pump, close up the ceiling, bring it back, open up the ceiling, put it back in. So our labor costs are maybe double in that type of a building. Plus, the sheriff also has to have an escort with us, not only us, but contractors, where a lot of these podular type jails, direct supervision, they've designed everything on the mechanical side that's in the non-secure side. So we can go in without having to really mix with the correction side, inmates and such, and we can work on our mechanical systems, plumbing and such without having to spend more time and secure everything when we leave at the end of the day. So that's been an impetus also for us to move to making improvements to the jail as far as looking at a pod type system in the jail. About 15 years ago, I visited the Tioga County Jail, which is a very small jail, and it was beautiful. I mean, you didn't have to go into the correction side to service most any of your systems. It's been great. I mean, the other thing is also, just so you know, perspective-wise, I've been working on the public safety building study after study since 1998. I asked Mark to give me an idea of costs that's in the last 10 years. So in the last 10 years, we've spent in just studies, design work, no improvements, but just studies and design, $513,000. And then studies before where we actually hired a consultant, and we were actually moving forward with a jail project, and it was put on hold after we'd spent $350,000 plus other studies that we had done from 98 to 2012. So we've spent probably close to $1 million to date in studies. And unfortunately, each time we put off for several years, then we almost have to redo a lot of the studies we've done before, like building condition assessment. The one we did in 2019, we had done back in 2003, as well as any space studies. So I'm just giving you an idea of at least the cost to date that we spent in studies, and does not include these improvement costs that we're doing, that we're going to be starting here in the next few weeks.
Okay. More depressing information, but useful.
I was just thinking, I mean, I'd like to see us move, not something today, because frankly, if you send us all that information, then we have a month to read over it. I know Veronica wants to. I need to refresh myself on it all too. I mean, and obviously the costs are going to go up, not down. But maybe then next month, we just make a statement of, okay, what do we really want? Just put costs away for a while and say, okay, we do want a pod system. We do want 3 pods, one for youth, one for, women, men, and then because that gives us transgender, we get a lot of options with that. And then if we do the statement of, okay, here's what we want, and we want X amount of classrooms, and then we get a price tag at the end, the price is going to be what it's going to be.
Well, yeah, I think our job is a little bit simpler than that, in that really we need to define what you say. We need to be very clear. This is what we want. We then turn it over to F&I. I think we should be cognizant of cost, but really I see it as the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee responsibility to take it from there. That we should say, this plan would give us the functionality, as we were talking about in August, to do all the things, say crisis stabilization, classrooms, reconfigure the CAP court, all of the things that we see as necessary to have a world-class or first-class facility, which is what we want. And then the reality check, I think, has to come at F&I side. And for example, the energy component, do we want this to be, zero sum? That's their decision. It's not ours. We should focus on the public safety aspects of what we want. And I think we could do that next month, with some thinking. Lisa?
I was also thinking another role of this committee is distinct from F&I was to look at the effects and impacts of bail reform that we were waiting after, that happened to see if our population would be reduced further or if there would be any other projected changes there. And then also any feedback from, I would imagine, the sheriff's office around docks and what they're doing in terms of supporting building new facilities, if they're looking to support more of a regional approach versus a county approach, or if there's anything programmatically on that front that we should be made aware of to pass on to F&I.
Yeah, Sheriff, go ahead.
I just wanted to offer up, Rich, if it's helpful. I know I, for one, can't really look at blueprints on a computer screen. If you think it would be helpful, perhaps some committee members want to come to the sheriff's office, actually be on site, and we'll roll out the paper documents and actually see it. And I could get Ray Bunce involved and explain the thought process behind how we came up what we did, and the committee can possibly provide input on changes. I don't know.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I don't know what the rest of the committee, what do you think? Yeah.
And we could arrange it for an evening if that's easier. I know people have jobs during the day too, and that's often a problem. So I'd be willing to do it in the evening if that's helpful.
Okay. Mike?
I just think for me closing, I wanted to say that, listen, my overriding principle is I want our people we're holding to be safe. I want our workers to be safe. Sometimes that gets forgotten too. I was really worried about the pod system actually, because I'm like, how is one person watching all these people? And yet that did seem to be, a good way to go about things. So I didn't want people to think I'm flippant about cost. The cost is going to be what it's going to be.
Well, Arel makes a good point that there are costs to not doing anything. And your analogy to leaky boat, I think, is a good one, that you have to spend a lot to keep your boat not going down. That is unnecessary effort. And I think if we push this off for another 5 years, we'll have more design costs. We'll add to that. And the construction costs will never go down. So we're probably looking at, spending 60 million if we wait 5 years. I don't know that that's a smart direction to go. Sticker shock is sticker shock, sure, but we have to look what happens if we don't do it.
Well, I think what Arel said is pertinent too, is that if we do kind of go with this newer system, the jail we saw, much easier to service. So if you can get in there easier, Al, with people to service things, I've got to, I couldn't work on a new car today. I wouldn't know the first thing about it. The easier the car is to work on, the cheaper it's going to be and the better service you're going to get. So I've got to assume a building's about the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've spent a fair amount of time on this. It was a good discussion, but I think we do need to move on to get our other business done. And I think we have a plan to get ready for next month, where I anticipate we may well make a pretty significant decision and pass it on to F&I at that point.
Would like us to kind of speak with one voice as a committee, though, if we're going to pitch something that's going to cost that much money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't heard anything I disagree with. Nothing Travis said, nothing Veronica said.
I think the meeting to really look at the plans and, kick the tires a bit would be a really good idea. So we're comfortable with the direction we're going. We'll just need to schedule that. So, Sheriff, yes, thank you. I think that would be a good next step.
Yeah, and Derek, I'd be more than happy to participate in that, either get plans or project it on your flat panel there. I wouldn't mind doing that.
Yes, please, Arel.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, Rich, if you want to just get with me offline tomorrow or next week, we'll set something up.
Yeah, we'll get it on the calendar. Great. Okay. Well, we've, as I said, eaten up a lot of time with the chair's report. Sorry about that. Let's move on to county administration. Lisa?
Thanks, Rich. I can be brief. I just have one item of business under my report, and that is the acceptance, a resolution accepting a grant from New York State Department of Criminal Justice.
And this is resolution doc ID 11212, accept 2022-2023 New York State Department of Criminal Justice Discovery Grant. Could I get a motion on that? Veronica moves, Travis seconds. This is for $287. I'm sure it does not cover the true cost of what we have to do in terms of discovery reform, but it's helpful. And I assume we want the money, but any questions or comments?
I'd like to make the comment that I think some of these bail reforms should be changed, but that is not part of this, that we still need to pay for them because they are in place as they stand.
And I would just comment that we took action toward the end of the budget process to realize this as an ongoing source of funding. And it will go to cover the costs of staffing at the district attorney's office, the sheriff's office, and a partial personnel staffer at Department of Emergency Response.
Okay. Any further comment? Given that we're all present, I'm going to say all those in favor. That's unanimous. Great. Thank you. Okay. Anything further from county administration?
Not today, thank you.
All right. Next up is the sheriff's office. And welcome, Sheriff.
Thanks, Rich. I don't have much to add today. I just wanted to comment. We've had a lot of conversation about staffing at the sheriff's office. It continues to go very well. We think we potentially have 2 new lateral transfer applicants we'll be looking at in the very near future. That'll put us in a really good position, especially starting in the next year with a lot of the new positions you added to our budget, which we greatly appreciate. So we're hoping to make the best out of those as soon as we can at the start of 2023. But I have high hopes. I think we're doing a lot of good things, and the new contract going through certainly helped, and the support of the legislature, and I think it's been noticed both internally and externally. And I hope we continue to get a lot of people interested in coming to work at the sheriff's office. It's certainly looking that way. So that's all I'll say. You have my report. The next topic, the high visibility engagement campaign. I'll let Jen speak to that if there's questions. But other than that, unless you have any questions, that's all I have.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go briskly, as we like to say here, because I don't want to shortchange Michael Sigler in the EMS presentation, but Jen, welcome, and please tell us about the high visibility reimbursement awards.
Yeah, this is more of just an informational resolution. One of my duties is the Stop DWI coordinator for the county. So this is just an annual grant that we get from the Stop Foundation. The funds are meant for increased patrol activities and education and enforcement around impaired driving. So this money gets spent throughout all Tompkins County law enforcement agencies, not just the sheriff's office. An agency would put out an extra patrol during the high visibility campaign dates. They would then request a refund through the STOP program. That grant money would get pulled and the refund would go through to that department specifically.
And I'm curious, have we seen any trends in DWIs up or down over the last year or so? I had heard that there were some changes coming out of the pandemic that
I could say just in general of traffic enforcement in general is down significantly during COVID and because of I think national staffing shortages in law enforcement. Traffic enforcement in general has gone down, which I think it tends to lead to fewer DWI arrests made. I would assume to guess that people aren't driving impaired less. I think there's just less enforcement out there. But one thing that high visibility campaign is targeting, which used to be called crackdown, is more of an educational component, not just enforcement. So that's something I've specifically been trying to work with, been working with ESPN radio and some other news outlets to get out radio ads and some other general ideas of how we could educate the public and not just be enforcement focused.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you. And anything further from the sheriff's office? We'd like to then stop in with our district attorney. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Rich. I don't have anything really exciting to report. We've got a few trials scheduled on the horizon between now and the end of the year, but otherwise working on the data disclosure group and just happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Yeah, I would say thank you for all your work on that. I think this is a really positive development to have that data becoming far more public and transparent.
Great.
It's really good. All right. Any questions or comments for our district attorney? Let's move on to the Department of Emergency Response. And Michael, thank you. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. The presentation is only a few slides, and it's a follow-up to last month's meeting where we were asked to put together a very high-level overview of what we anticipate the first year for our emergency medical program manager. So joining me today is Justin Van and Jessica, our deputy director. Justin is our emergency services coordinator and currently interfaces with all three public safety disciplines. And I'm going to turn it over now to Justin, who will be going through the presentation.
Great. You have the floor.
Yep. I'm going to share my screen momentarily.
Thank you for having me. As it was discussed last week, or excuse me, last month with the Emergency Medical Services Program Manager, we kind of went into high gear and developed a kind of collaborative overall what's going to be the mission for this position and the first year goals, distinguishing skill sets for the manager, as well as polling some of the other counties in the state to see where they're at with their EMS programs. So the original mission that we came up with for this position is to develop and maintain a comprehensive program that will augment the community-based services and providing care and ongoing education of emergency medical services in Tompkins County. We want this individual to not only work in the field to provide care, but a strong presence in training, education, bringing in more opportunities for individuals to become EMTs and then further on their career to the paramedic level. And that was, those two things are the top priorities for this position to succeed and develop in the first round, or excuse me, the first year. First year goals, again, is to develop strong working relationships with EMS leaders and staff of the community-based EMS services. Develop a timeline for the implementation of this program. Develop EMS training and education for these community-based services. Again, getting more people the training that they need, especially the basic EMT, the initial training that we need for EMS coverage in the county. Come up with a comprehensive research and data review to develop EMS response and placement of the assets. So that's the biggest thing, is where in the county do these resources need to be the most to develop or put forth the best care to the lesser served agencies. Develop staffing models, equipment and vehicle specifications, and develop the program policies and procedures. Another big thing with this will be to assist with the hiring of a medical director. That's something we've been working towards, to try and get this overall medical director for the county, instead of each agency having their own, which is kind of how it's operated right now. Research billing opportunities and apply for and obtain the certificate of need at that point in time. Those are the first year goals that were set forth that this individual will have to achieve.
Justin?
Yes.
Just tell us, what's the importance of a certificate of need? What does that do?
The certificate of need is you need an agency needs that to operate an emergency medical services within the county. So Bangs Ambulance has a certificate of need to cover the county as well. So that is something that we will have to apply for through New York State to get that, and that will give us the opportunity to then provide care. Some of the distinguishing skill set of the EMS program manager, again, a strong emphasis on education, wanting to, or they need to be a certified paramedic or registered nurse or higher, someone with a high level of care instead of just a basic EMT. We want somebody with that experience to lead this program. Proven experience as an EMS educator, again, high priority of being able to not only provide but educate new and existing providers in the county. Quality assurance of EMS charts as the reporting side of EMS that is required by New York State. EMS management experience and familiarity with the scheduling and supervising of EMS staff. So as I mentioned before, some of the other counties, I've been putting on a poll, kind of getting some information from other counties in New York State, talking with the other fire and EMS coordinators to get an idea of where they're at with EMS in their county. A number of counties are how we're serving right now with, each agency is on, is providing their own coverage. And then, as you can see with this slide, some of the counties have gone to a countywide system. Chautauqua County, which is a little over 1,000 square miles. They have 4 paramedic staffed ALS fly cars that run 24/7 and 2 EMS or paramedic admin and field coverage supervisors that are basically in their office and will go out when and where needed. They also actually have a basic life support ambulance that is staffed for 10 hours of the day. And then if that is needed, if they're on a call and they need ALS support, one of those fly cars would respond out. Shenango County they're going to they just implemented a system this past May, and where they have 2 ALS fly cars placed in opposite ends of the county. They run a north-south geographic location, and 2 BLS ambulances that run 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday. When talking with their coordinator, they envisioned their services to be expanded to cover 24/7 in the very near future. Essex County, which is a little larger of a county, a little over 1,700 square miles. They operate a fly car system and staffing to support agency during peak hours, meaning if an ambulance is in need of a medic or provider to ride with them, they would be able to then provide that medic to ride along on that ambulance. Wayne County, a little bit smaller, about half the size. Their 24/7 fly car program also crew shares with local ambulances when they need providers. And then if a second medic is needed to fill a transport crew, they will team up with that ambulance to staff and provide the care. Those are just a couple examples of some models that other counties are using. And then this one just shows Niagara, Schuyler County, and Steuben County all are in the process at some point or along the line of developing an EMS program, with Schuyler County being the closest to us. They did just obtain their certificate of need and have offered any sort of support going forward when it comes time to obtain ours. Any kind of support that they can give to help us obtain that as quick as possible.
I'm curious, does anybody know what the square footage or square mileage of Tompkins is? I should know, I've seen it, but.
Google's 492. I just looked it up.
Thank you.
I was gonna say I did have it, but that wasn't in this report, but yeah.
Justin, thank you for that overview.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having us and for this new position. It's going to be very beneficial to the providers and the agencies throughout Tompkins County.
Well, in our expanded budget committee meeting, when I introduced the resolution, I said, I think this is probably the most important decision we're making, because this is an area we have not been involved with. This is a significant advance in the responsibilities of the county. So we certainly want to make sure we're doing it correctly. Mike, I saw your hand up.
I just have a couple questions real quick. Did you answer, when do you think that this person could be onboarded? Like, how long will that take before you can get somebody, Mike?
I think as soon as we're able to post the position, I'd like to. It's my understanding that that can't happen until after the final budget approval, but I'm here to learn as well, but that's my understanding. So once we get to go ahead that we can post a position, then I'd like to move on it right away and hopefully get them on within January or February.
Then this is going to be an impossible question, but
Sure.
How long do you think it would take to actually come up with, okay, here's what we think should happen? Like,
You know what, honestly, I think if we hire the right person, I think we can come up with something relatively quickly. I mean, we already have a general sense as to what we need. It's just a matter of really, I think, doing a deep dive into the data and making sure that what we sort of hypothesized is accurate, and that we're putting the units where they really are going to serve the greatest good. So I think we have enough models around us and enough counties that have had to venture into this arena that are willing to help us. So I don't think it's an impossible question. I think it's a fair one, and I think we can. I'd like to have something, by the summertime to bring back so that we have plenty of time to prepare for next year's budget.
That'd be great. I mean, yeah, because we start budgeting April, right? So.
Okay, Jessica, did you have more, Mike?
No, that's it.
Okay, Jessica.
I was just going to help answer Mike's question. In talking with some of the other counties that have set up a program similar to this, Shenango being the one I am most closely associated with, it's taken them, I would say, about a year to 18 months to get their program fully up and running. After 6 months of running, they've just recently received their first reimbursement. So, and it sometimes will depend on the state and how quickly the state can move for the certificate of need and other things. I know Shenango had some hiccups with that, and we're able to work through them with the state. So really, I would guesstimate about a year before the program can be up and running. But budgetarily, that would make sense for us to really move forward with an actual fly car in service by 2024.
Roger. All right, thanks.
Travis, Veronica, anything? I do have a comment or a question. One of my concerns here is that what we do makes ambulance service better, that we don't just assume the responsibility from the towns and villages that are operating now. And I would assume that some attention will be paid to the financing model or structure to make sure that we are augmenting and not just replacing. Do you have any thoughts on how we can do that? And I put that out to all of you, Justin, Michael, Jessica. Has that been one of the topics you've talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we talked a little bit about with our EMS leaders the other day as well. I think what we have to do is just continue to have open and honest conversation. I think that we have to truly identify where our gaps are, because I think that we just need to make sure that we're doing proper due diligence. And I think that when we start to think about what we need in support from the communities in Tompkins County, that we get the buy-in. And I think that we're going to do that by making sure that we're communicating with our local EMS partners. I know it may not be a direct answer, Rich, but I think, at the moment, I think that's really the best approach. And I think that as we move forward, that it's okay to have some of those expanded conversations as to what it's going to cost and how we're going to even share some of that responsibility.
Yeah, and I mean, everything about this is going to be delicate and difficult, I think, in talking about how it gets funded. But it is critically important, I think, that we do it in a way that we don't disincentivize any of these towns that are running, really nice ambulance services right now. We want them to continue to do it. So, okay, that's an ongoing discussion as I see it. Anything further on this? I thought we'd be talking quite a while on ambulances, but okay. It looks like you have all the steps in place for now. And yeah, I anticipate that we will pass a budget with this item remaining in it.
If I could just add to, it's gonna be very fluid, and obviously we got really aggressive with our timeline since we're at the end of the year, but it's really my intention to make sure that we're being a really strong community partners with those community-based services and to hear really what their needs are. Each area will have a unique need, and then to take all those great ideas and to build around that. So I just want to reassure everyone that we've already started that. We're talking about this at the fire chief level, at the EMS leadership level, and we're listening. And I think that's really a big piece of this. And I just want to thank the entire Public Safety Committee for their support last month, and Rich for moving forward at the enhanced budget meeting. For this
thank you for educating us on it. That was a really good presentation, I thought, to our committee. And I'd also mention, it does seem like New York State was thinking about this issue in their last budget cycle. And I hope the momentum continues, but it seems possible that there would be some funding coming out of their 2023 session that would impact local ambulance in a positive way, I hope. But yeah, I guess that's yet to be seen. So anything further on this topic? Right.
Just something that's not on this topic, but it's relative to this and underneath our department. Is that okay, Rich?
Sure, go ahead.
So something that we talked about on Tuesday with our EMS leaders, is what more can our department do to really try to help the community-based services. So I made a phone call to Workforce New York. Is it Workforce New York or New York Workforce? I'm sorry. I'm still trying to understand the lay of the land, but I had a really great conversation on actually yesterday and had a follow-up email today. And we're looking to see if there's a possibility of developing an EMT program in the county that we can use as a recruitment tool to help also serve as a feeder program into the community-based services, whether they're volunteer or they're offering some form of compensation for EMS. I'm excited. I think there's a real possibility here. There was a lot of enthusiasm in the meeting the other day with the EMS leaders. So we talked a little bit during the enhanced budget discussion about our work with BOCES. So this is in addition to that. But I think that there's a really good opportunity here. And I think it's another example of, working with another county department and getting that support and taking some of the vision from the leaders in the community and really trying to work towards a common goal.
I absolutely agree. Certainly if we're thinking we need bigger and better ambulance response or emergency medical service response in our county, having more qualified people is essential. And that is a real need right now. So that's good news. Yeah. All right. Why don't we keep going then? You have your Tomstat report. I assume everybody had a chance to review that. And thank you for all the additional information you're now including in your monthly report. That's really good. Any questions or comments on his report? Okay. There is a resolution. This is Doc ID 11224, resolution to accept a grant from the Triad Foundation to the Department of Emergency Response in support of the ES chat system for emergency responder communications. Could I get a motion on that? Travis moves, Veronica seconds, right? And Michael or Lisa, do you want to speak to this?
I would defer to.
Absolutely. So Rich, as we started to roll out the ES chat platform at the beginning of the year. We've had a lot of success with that. Harlan McEwen, who is our project manager for this, a volunteer project manager at that. So he does a lot of great work, was able to secure some additional funding. And it's at a really great time because what this will allow us to do is to purchase some additional hardware and some licenses to bring even more partners on board. So a real good example of that is we've been working with the Newfield school system to help them upgrade their radio system. They are using a private radio system, and we're working very closely with them to try to bring them onto the county 800 radio system. They currently have 2 of our radios, which is certainly not enough for what they really need for school safety and security. So we've already met with them twice in the last month. And I think that there's an application of the ES chat platform for their use, because again, our radios are quite expensive. So I think we can work out a hybrid model with them where they have a certain number of radios, physical radios that they can use on the system, but also adding ES chat licenses to their administrator phone, so they have access to that system as well without having to purchase a $3,500 radio. So this resolution will help us secure that additional funding and make ES chat available to more community partners.
Any questions or comments on the resolution? Are we ready to vote? Call it. All those in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. So motion passes. Thank you. Anything further from the Department of Emergency Response?
Just a big thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Let's keep moving. Department of Probation and Community Justice.
Good afternoon, everyone. I good segue for me into the ES chat conversation. Mike and his team have provided the probation department with 5 ES chat capable radios, as well as 6 handheld radios that we've begun to use in a trial basis. Right now, we're currently practicing off of the main system and sort of dispatching our own probation officers into in and out of field contacts. It's been quite successful. I think the ES chat has really strongly augmented our ability to use the system, with all the supervisors having ES chat and the field officers being able to use the 6 radios. Addition to that, we have some real good upcoming trainings that a bunch of our department is going to be participating in. I've got 5 officers going to an instructor development course in Binghamton in December. That is the precursor for becoming certified as a trainer in just about anything that you want to train in the probation field. It's hard to find this training, so we're lucky to have one local and very cost effective to get 5 people trained so they can become trainers in other genres. The entire department will be participating in the trauma informed response training on November 10th, which is one of our stated goals for the year, to become more trauma informed and make sure that we're utilizing those skills in our work with our clients. I also wanted to let folks know that we're resuming our provision of DWI victim impact panels. We have 3 set up, one next week, one in November, and then one in January, to try to clear the backlog of DWI offenders that we have who need to attend a victim impact panel. We've been unable to provide those due to COVID. So we have about 60 individuals that need that, who will be accommodated in October, November, and January. And then we anticipate going back to our standard quarterly DWI victim impact panels in 2023, where we'll probably offer one in April, July, and October, just to accommodate the new cases that are coming in. And that includes both people who are on probation and people who are given conditional discharges for DWAIs and things. So the courts will be able to begin referring back to us in 2023. We used to get some funding for that from Stop DWI, just to cover mileage for the speakers. And since Stop DWI merged with the Traffic Safety Committee, I'm not aware of how to request funding from that or who to even ask. I've not been invited to or attended any meetings if those are occurring. So if anyone knows who I should speak with, I would appreciate that information. Just also wanted to let folks know that Cops, Kids, and Toys application is now available online for December of 2022. So please share with your constituents. If they go to copskidsandtoys.org, the application is online. And the applications need to be submitted by November 20th so that we can consider them and get everything purchased and packaged up for the children who need that service. It's really all I have today, unless my resolution to accept a grant award similar to Matt's made it to the table. I don't see it on the agenda, so we may have to talk about that next month.
Do we have another?
It did. It was sent out to committee members yesterday, and I do have copies as well.
Okay. Let me just pull it up, get it through for you.
I could provide an overview for the committee if that's helpful.
Getting to it. Here we go. Let's get it on the floor. This is resolution ID 11262, authorization to accept an award of grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. Can I get a motion on that? Veronica moves, Travis seconds. And this is for $121,543. Do you want to speak to this, Dan?
Yes, just real quickly, Governor Hochul set aside $20 million to be distributed equally amongst the upstate counties to offset, defray the costs of providing pretrial supervision. The awards were based upon the number of arraignments that each county had. So our percentage was the 121,000. The least any county could receive was 60,000, and the most was, I think there were some counties, some of the larger counties that received $1 million or more, but it's all based on the number of arraignments and pretrial supervision cases. So this would be our share. I've attended 2 meetings about this because it was sort of came out of the blue. We just need to verify for the state that our expenditure of these funds does something to enhance or cover the costs of pretrial services that are being delivered in the county.
Any questions or comments? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. So we've accepted the grant. Thank you for bringing that up to us. Anything further from Department of Probation and Community Services, Community Justice?
My only last thing that I'd like to extend my well wishes to Mr. Granison and hope that he fares well.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. We have the assigned counsel program, and I thought I saw, there's Lance up in the corner.
Hello, Rich. Hello, everyone. I'll try to be brief. Not a lot to update you on. You'll see that one resolution you have for us is just related to Julia Hughes's retirement. That's, I think it's an informational thing. So like I said, not a lot of update on our program. We're moving forward. Our family court numbers continue to be high, but I think we're starting to get over the bubble a little bit. It's a little early to tell, but that would be a good sign there on that. Just a couple of notes, couple of quick comments, because I know you were running late. The DWI numbers, I think Jen may be correct. It may be partly, an enforcement issue, but I also think it seems like over the last few years, numbers are down a bit. And I think some of that, I can't tell you what percentage, maybe the impact of all the educational programs and everything that have been put in place for a number of years. I mean, you would expect that to have impact at some point, and that may be a contributor as well. It's probably not the largest contributor, but if that's true, you'd expect to see those numbers continue to stay down, which is a good thing. It means all these efforts are having some impact. The other thing, just a quick update on less is more, the parole reform and its impact, because I did a couple of the recognizance hearings this week to give you a sense of how that's playing out. One of them was in recognizance hearings are the new hearings on whether people are held on the parole violation or released. One was an individual who picked up a number of serious felony charges. That person was remanded on the parole violation as well, which you'd kind of expect. The second one was today with someone who picked up some misdemeanor charges. We did the recognizance hearing. They were released on EM2 back to parole. That in the past, that would have been somebody who would have sat probably for at least a month in our jail on parole. So you're seeing, that's one of the positive impacts of less is more. People with these lesser charges getting kicked back into the community, kind of reducing jail costs for us. So I just thought I'd pass it on, kind of the on the ground impact we're seeing there from less is more. And then any questions anybody has?
Okay. I think we do have a resolution for you. I don't see any questions, but I don't want to cut anybody short if you had something. Okay, I'd like to put on the floor resolution ID 11200, appropriation from contingent fund terminal pay, assigned counsel. Could I get a motion on that? Veronica moves, Mike seconds. And as Lance indicated, this is terminal pay for Julia Hughes' retirement. Any questions or comments on the resolution? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, so that, I believe we saw this at the Budget Committee, so now it's here and it'll go to the legislature. So thank you. Anything further, Lance?
No, not for me. Thanks, Rich.
Okay, and we have gotten through our agenda. We're 10 minutes early. Is there any other business that should come before the Public Safety Committee? Seeing none, I thank everybody for their participation, and it looks like we'll have a follow-up meeting up at the jail to look at plans and hopefully come with some recommendation to our next meeting in November. So thank you, everybody. And we are adjourned.